Good morning, students. It's me, Miss Sania, and today we are back with another lesson of major industries of Pakistan, part 3. So, let's get started. I am zooming the screen so that you can see it much more clearly that what exactly is written in the slide. Now, I am moving towards another slide. Alright. As you can see, the first SLO which is appearing on your screen is 6.1.3, which says that analyze the factors that are responsible for the setting up of an industry in a particular region. It means that you have to identify the factors which are responsible or which are needed if you want to set up an industry in a specific region. So, what factors which you have to keep in mind while making of an industry? Now let's move towards the factors. Factors for industrial location, but you have to keep in mind, as we have studied before, that we have studied around three industries, types of industries. So all these factors which are utilized in these three types of industries will be different in context of money. All right. Now let's come upon the physical factor. Number one is natural route, in which we will discuss about the what route you have to take, which location you have to select, and then number two, site requirement in land. Land plays a very important role while you are making an industry, but because without a land, you cannot set up an industry. Okay. Now let's move towards another, that is the human factor. The first point in human factor is raw material. Obviously, when you're starting out with an industry, so raw material plays a very essential and important role in this regard. Second is capital. In other terms, you can say that capital is known as money. Without money or without investment, you cannot start up with an industry. Third point is government policies. Obviously, you have to take government's permission for the land which you're occupying for an industry. Fourth one is power supply. If there will be power supply, then definitely you can run an industry. If there will be no electricity, then how can you run it? Fifth thing, access to markets. It is very important that your industry is situated around that place where markets are nearer to your industry. Labor force plays a very important role in this regard, because without labor force, you cannot achieve your targets. All right. Now let's move towards another slide. Okay. As you can see in the physical factor, which we have already discussed before when I was explaining you all of these points, so let's move forward quickly. The first factor is land, in which there are four categories which we will cover. Number one is location, size, landforms, and cost. Four of these things are very important when you're thinking to set up an industry, because without location, you cannot set up an industry. You have to also mention this thing, that which kind of industry you want to build. So, for example, if it's cottage industry, so you can set up it at home, so the size will be small. But if I talk about large scale industry, I need a landform which is larger in size to set up this kind of industry. And obviously, cost depends upon that which kind of industry you're selecting. For example, if you're selecting cottage industry, you need less cost. If you're selecting small scale industry or large scale industry, then the cost will be different. Heavy industries. A large area of cheap, low, flat land. Obviously, when you need heavy industry, in other terms, you can say that we are talking about large scale industries. When you need a large scale industry to be set up, then automatically you need an area to be larger in size, and you need that cheap, low, flat land. Automatically, you need more labor workforce, but you need less expenses. For example, obviously, if I talk about raw material, if I talk about capital, if I talk about all of those requirements which are there to set up an industry, so you will invest a high amount, a bulk of amount onto that thing. You need large labor force, you need bulk of equipment, so you will actually divide your money accordingly, that on land how much money you have to spend, and on other requirements how much money you have to spend. So this term means that in this place. All right. Now let's move towards Light industry. When we talk about light industry, so it means we are talking about small scale industries. Small pieces of land areas are also fine. Obviously, you don't need a big setup, you need a small setup. So for that thing, you have to consider that industry which is smaller in size. All right. Now let's move towards another factor, that is natural root. Natural root or major advantage for any region. Obviously, natural root plays a very important role. As I've mentioned before, that it can be any kind of industry, it can be any type, but there is one point which you have to keep in consideration, that is that it should be nearer to that location where accessibilities are important, right? It should be nearer to that location where you can access to each and every raw material or access to each and every requirement, or access to each and every equipment that is required. Okay. When we talk about natural root's a major advantage for any region to be industrialized. It is important to make available the raw materials for the supply of finished goods to the markets. Transport cost is a critical factor affecting industrial location. Now, I will elaborate this thing in context of an example. For example, if I say that I want to set up a large scale industry in that zone where there is not that much human population, so I have to keep in consideration all of the factors which are required. I need raw material, I need electricity, water supply. If all of these things are available over there, then definitely it will be much more easier for me to set up an industry over there. But I will talk about their example and bring the raw material from the city side, and then I have to return back after long hours distance to my location. And then I am utilizing all of those raw materials over there, then definitely there is a thing which comes in context of transport cost. So I have to pay that I have to pay the daily wage to the laborers as well. And on the other hand, I also have to think that the transport cost is also utilized over there on daily basis. So whenever I am thinking to set up an industry, I do have to consider this thing that all of these equipments which I need, for example, raw material, water supply, electricity, etc. So all of these points are available over there, where I am setting up an industry. Now let's move towards another slide. Choosing the correct mode of transport plays a very important role, which we have to keep in consideration. For example, the mode water. If the long distance is there, then it is the cheapest. If the short distance is there, then it is the highest one, right? The speed is slow, good types, bulky, low value, non perishability. Now, see, there are all the means of transport that are mentioned over here, and there is another SLO with the name of means of transport. So, we will discuss much more in detail the means of transport into that SLO. But now, currently, I'll go through in a very quick way from this SLO. So let's start. When I talk about the modes like water, railway, road, airway, as I've mentioned before about it, see, if I talk about airways, then definitely I have to give a higher amount of money. I have to invest onto that thing, and then I can bring the product to my market or the place where I want that product to be there. Okay. When I talk about road transport, then there you can say that it is the door to door light transport. It is fair enough. It is the cheapest means of transportation. But when I talk about railways, railways for long distances are cheap, but for short distances they're high, because obviously, if you need the material urgently, then you have to pay more money as compared to the long distances. When I talk about waterways, then in waterways, automatically waterways and long distances, it is cheap. But then once again, I'll say that if I need the product in short distances, so automatically I have to pay a larger amount so that my good type should be there on time. Okay. Now, when I talk about fixed capital, then as you can see in this picture, there is an illustration which was going on. Now, let's start with this. Fixed capital. Land construction of factory building, machinery for processing, and social capital, social services of the area, including public housing, school, hospital. It also includes physical infrastructures, for example, road, railways. Fixed capital is much more immobile, difficult, and costly to move. When I talk about fixed capital, then basically fixed capital means that you are actually investing an amount onto that